Welcome to the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, the podcast 10 for 10, which brings you the week's top 10 compliance stories curated together in one podcast each week. Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, brings you the compliance professional stories you need to be aware of at the end of your busy week. Sit back and in 10 minutes, hear about the stories every compliance professional should be aware of. Every Saturday, 10 for 10 highlights the most important news, insights, and analysis for the compliance professional, all curated by the voice of compliance, Tom Fox. Get your weekly filling of compliance stories with 10 for 10. Hosted by Tom Fox. 10 for 10 is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. 10 for 10 for the week ending April 5, 2025. Our first story reports on the departure of the two top FCPA enforcers at the Securities and Exchange Commission. It comes to us from Reuters. It reports that Charles Kane and his first assistant, Tracy Price, have both resigned and are leaving the agency. It's not clear if they were resigned to pursue other opportunities or they're leaving on their own accord. Nevertheless, this will eviscerate the SEC's FCPA unit and probably lead to the disbanding of it. The SEC has indicated they will not enforce the FCPA per the president's announcement to the Department of Justice. Next, from the BBC, a story about resilience, red flags, and information. It's that Heathrow Airport was warned about the resilience of its power supplies in the days before the fire which shut down the airport last month. Nigel Wicking, the chief executive of Heathrow's Airline Operators Group, which represents airlines, spoke to Heathrow twice in the weeks before the closure of March 21. And Heathrow responded that they saw the fire at the power station as an unlikely event and said that they didn't see it as a risk. Well, when you have a large electrical systems or systems powered by electricity, you always need to worry about your power supply. Duh. Next up from the Financial Times, Deloitte is seeking to avoid liability yet again, this time for the collapse of the Scana nuclear power plant in South Carolina. Deloitte has asked a judge to throw out demands that it compensate shareholders who lost money in the collapse of the country's one of the biggest nuclear power plants. It exposed the in just terrible inner work at Deloitte. It surrounds the South Carolina utility Scana, which was building a nuclear power plant. The plant was shut down, or the construction was shut down after years of cost overruns and delays in the face of a whistleblower claiming that the construction company Westinghouse was impossibly far behind schedule and other red flags, which Deloitte apparently either discounted or didn't investigate or just found not credible. So more trouble for a Big Four. Next up from the Wall Street Journal, Ben & Jerry's co-founder Ben Cohen has launched a long-shot bid to buy back the ice cream company he created with Jerry Greenfield in 1978 and sold to Unilever. This comes after Unilever fired the company's CEO from for the company's activism, which of course is what it's well known for. Nevertheless, Unilever, the relationship has deteriorated significantly as Ben & Jerry's halted sales of its products in Jewish settlements in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. So good luck, guys. Next up from Reuters, the SEC is shaking up its enforcement, having told its staff that in enforcement and exams, they will have new bosses that they have to report to. This will probably portend less enforcement by the SEC, as it doesn't seem to be concerned at all about fraud on the public under the new incarnation under the Trump administration, but we will have to see how it all shakes out. Our next story comes to us from the BBC, which reports that an ex-Shell boss has been given the task of cleaning up Nigeria's oil sector. Nigeria's president has appointed Bayo Ujari to lead the state-owned oil company as part of a sweeping reform aimed at cleaning up the sector dogged by allegations of corruption and pollution and decades-long inefficiency. He will try and overhaul the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, one of the world's most corrupt entities. It will be a restructure. The entire board has been replaced, and the hope is that not only will they be able to drive out corruption or at least make it less ubiquitous and get the company back running and contributing to the Nigerian economy. Next up, a couple of cases were dismissed. First, involving Mayor Eric Adams in New York, as federal district judge Dale Ho dismissed with prejudice the government's case against the mayor. The government had tried to dismiss the case without prejudice so that it could keep its foot on the throat of Eric Adams so that he would toe the line on Trump's immigration enforcement. No word on what the mayor will do. He has announced today he's going to not run as a Democrat, but will run as an independent. Good luck with him being elected, given the allegations against him and his toadying up to the Trump administration on behalf of the citizens of New York City. The feds have finally dropped the case, the FCPA case, against two ex-Cognizant executives, the CEO and the general counsel. As reported by Law 360, the case has been, it hasn't been dismissed as yet, but the government has told the case or the judge that they want to dismiss the case. This is after as recently as February 22nd, the government told the case that they wanted to move forward against former Cognizant President Gordon Coburn and one-time Chief Legal Officer Stephen Schwartz. So the 6+ year saga of the former Cognizant executives may be coming to an end, although it's the Trump administration and there's always a possibility that something else could come up. It's really no surprise given the Trump administration's suspension of FCPA investigation and enforcement. And frankly, I think this portends that no FCPA anything will happen during the Trump administration. So the American business economy will take another shot. Next up from the Wall Street Journal, when you ask about the cost of corruption, well, the towers that crumbled in the earthquake in Thailand tell you all you need to know, as many of the workers who built those and construction companies that built them were from Myanmar, and the poorly trained workers and the corruption involved really led to a lot of potentially tragic deaths. So if you ever wonder what's the true cost of corruption, well, unfortunately, it's people's lives. And our last story comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, which reports that a former Deutsche Bank executive has alleged that Deutsche Bank hid mishaps from regulators here in the United States. Deutsche Bank is under fire for problems with its internal controls after a former senior operations manager alleged that the bank hid problems from U.S. regulators in its U.S. arm, and these caused significant losses in the United States. Deutsche Bank, of course, was obtained by UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. So it would unfortunately be that acquiring entity which has to pay, but very serious allegations in the United States against Deutsche Bank. Have a great weekend. This is Tom Fox again. 10 for 10 is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network. I'd also urge you to check out the Daily Compliance News, which posts every week from Monday to Friday, where I give 4 curated stories of bribery, corruption, and compliance events that will allow you to help you start your day as well. So check out the Daily Compliance News and subscribe or rate and review to both 10 for 10 and the Daily Compliance News. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of 10 for 10. I hope you'll check out the newest podcast in the Compliance Podcast Network, the Compliance Tip of the Day. In Compliance Tip of the Day, I give a 5 to 8 minute summary of one tip that you can integrate into your compliance program or put together for greater compliance program efficiency. Finally, if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, I am preparing a new season of Adventures in Compliance where I go through the 4 novels of Sherlock Holmes. Hear it on the Compliance Podcast Network.